We're looking at some Python programming, and this is my website and where we store our YouTube values, YouTube videos, not our values. So this is kind of a continuation, or will be a continuation of tutorial 6. Alright, so we're going to add a couple things to what we were doing. So if you remember, we outputted some numbers, and for example, we first started off with outputting, for example, 1 through 5, or we could have went 1 to 100, 1 to 1,000, however many we want to do. And then we added something to that, and that was just we outputted some random numbers. So we could, we outputted some random numbers, and then we found their sum. Okay, and then we found their sum. So what we're going to do now is we're going to introduce, or not introduce, you should already know, we're going to be using the input statement. And what that is going to do is, so for example, it was fixed in the program. Let's just go ahead and bring the program up. So it was fixed in the program right here that we went to 4. So let's say that we are going to, we want to put an input statement in, and and ask us a question on how many data points do we want to sum up. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll just give this variable a name k, and remember that our input is going to be a string, and so we were going to, since this is going to be a number, we're going to have to convert it into an integer. Alright, so how many data points, we'll say, do you want? I don't know. It's coming up with something there. Alright, so how many data points do you want? And so so this number right here is going to be our k. Do you see that right there? That will be our k. Alright, so let's just go ahead and run that. Uh-oh. And of course, I always forget, we need to put, right, so we have 2 parentheses, 2 left parentheses, we need 2 right parentheses over here on this side. Okay. Alright, so it says how many data points do you want? So let's just first start off with 4. Alright. Okay, so let's do this in our head here. So this is 9 and 4 is 9 and 4 is 13, and 13 and 8 is going to be 21. Right, so let's go back. Let's run this again. Alright, so let's say 10 this time. Alright, so that sum is 62. But let's say that okay, let's say that we want to actually number these. Right, so we're going to put a 1 there, and then a 2 here, and then so forth. So let's say we want to put a number by them so we can see how many there actually there are. And what we'll need to do on that is just come down to, let's say here, okay, and C is what's being incremented. So we'll want to go C, right, and then we can go comma, and then period. And alright, so that should take care of that. So let's take a look at this here. Let's take a look at it. So we'll say 10 data points. Alright, so as you can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, actually, we got a space going on right here. So what we could do is we'll have to convert this to a string. Now remember, because we're going to concatenate it with a string. Alright, you see that right there? So we have to convert this to a string, and then we glue it on to this guy. That's the way I say it. We glue it on. And that'll help get rid of that space there. So let's go back and run the program. We'll say 10 data points, bam. So you see that right there? It's no longer a big space right there. Okay? And this is very useful, especially when we're spitting off a bunch of data and we don't know how much there is. We don't sit here and count them 1, 2, 3, 4, even though we are saying 10 here. Alright, so we're just doing a little tweak here and there. What else do I want to add to this? I mean, there's a ton of stuff we can add to it. What about an if statement? Okay, I know we hadn't gone over what if statements are, but you're going to see an example of one right here. If, let's say for example, n, now that's the random number, is equal to, let's say equal to 10. Okay, and now the thing about Python is the white spaces will kill you at first if you don't. This stuff, when you get to here, you just hit enter. Just hit enter. That's all you got to do. Okay, and we'll say break. And what break is going to do is actually going to totally stop the program. Alright, we'll completely break the program. So if we come up with 10, it will break the program. So let's just go ahead, we'll say 11 here, or I don't know, 8. Okay, so what happened here when 10, as you can see here, when 10 got, when it came to 10, as you can see it's displaced here, the program totally stopped, even though it says we wanted to print off 8 data points. Okay, we wanted to print off 8 data points. When it got to that 10, it totally stopped it. Alright, what we could also say, if n is equal to 10, or if n is equal to, let's say, 5, okay, it'll break the program. So let's look at this. We'll run this. Alright, let's say 15 this time. Whoa, the very first data point was a 10. Terrible. Okay, so let's do that. I mean, what's the probability of that? Alright, let's do it again. 15. You gotta be kidding me. That is bizarre, man. I can't believe that happened again. Let's run it again. Chances of 2 10s in a row. Well, that is not what I wanted to happen way up there, but that's okay. So let's do 15 again. Okay, so look at here. So we got 15 random numbers, one between 1 and 10, and neither 5 nor 10 popped up in this group right here. See that? Neither 10 nor 5 popped up. So, you know, what is the probability that 5 or 10, right, doesn't come up in our data? And that's a lot of, that's probabilities are things that we're going to be doing a lot of calculating, because especially with the a bunch of random data, and it's easy to learn probabilities with Python. All right, and okay, so that total is 65. All right. That's not what I meant to click on either. So you can see here this this if statement. Now we could do things like this. For example, if n is, let's say, less than or equal to 3, or n is greater than or equal to 9, so that means 1, 2, or 3, or if it comes up 9 or 10, right? Okay, so let's see what happens here. Let's do this. Of course, we're not on the screen anymore. Okay. Oh my gosh. I'll tell you what. So we'll say 15. So the program broke, and look at here, we got a 3 right here. You see that? Let's go back here real quick. So it broke right when we got 3, n was equal to 3. Alright, so this is some very powerful stuff, the if statement and the while statement for doing, for looping. And so we can add a lot actually to this. We could actually change this number to, for example, G, I don't know, and then put like an input up here. We could actually change this to whatever letter you want between T and G, and in our input statement we could ask, you know, numbers between T and between G if you want. You would just say T is equal to the input, and then what's your lower bound, for example, and then what's your upper bound if you wanted to do that. Right, so you want to kind of tweak around with this thing and get it to do certain, get it to do other stuff. Alright, this concludes